So it looks like it's getting even worse for the GPU market, and that's NVIDIA and AMD included. Yesterday, we talked about how Ethereum finally went proof of stake. And as we know, Ethereum mining for GPUs has a huge impact on not only the pricing, but availability of GPUs. You can literally follow the price that Ethereum was. Like, for example, May 2021, the graph spiked up ridiculously high. I think it was over like $4,000. At the same time, GPUs, I remember that was the highest they ever were. May 2021, 3090 was a ridiculous price. Even the 3080 with an MSRP of $699 went over $2,000 during that point. 3070s were like $1,300. It was pretty ridiculous, pretty crazy. Not only that, you couldn't even really find them. Even the prices were high to begin with, but it's not like you could even find that many, even at those crazy prices. So that shows you the distinct connection between both. And as Ethereum, came closer to proof of stake, where it's no longer mineable, we saw GPU sales drop drastically, and we can see that from NVIDIA's quarterly earnings report, which was shockingly bad, like as bad as Intel's was pretty much. And really, they even had to do a preview of it so they wouldn't really throw people off guard, expecting NVIDIA to do so good, because they've been doing very good during the last few years. They were selling more than they could possibly think of. And to go back to Intel's point, that's why their Arc discrete GPUs is sort of kind of sketchy right now, because they were really going to release them during what should have been a really hot market. But now nobody's buying GPUs. Not only that, this is the point of this video. Why is it getting worse a day after Ethereum? First, a lot of people actually waited until this actually happened. You would think that a lot of people before would prepare. Everybody knew the date. There was a countdown. But believe it or not, a lot of people that are doing crypto mining as a hobby, and nothing wrong with that, of course, they wanted to wait out. They had a big investment in GPUs. Even if you're a gamer and you don't like that idea, a lot of hybrid stuff going on. We're not just talking about huge institutions that bought pallets and filled warehouses of GPUs to mine. There are those as well out there, but that's a completely, different thing. And it's going to be less of those, even though they do have a huge impact on inventory of GPUs. Maybe they can go, around the back of retailers through distributors and middlemen for a little extra money and get GPUs. But anyway, that's a whole other story. That's speculation. It's hard to say exactly what happened there. But now, a lot of those people, the day after Ethereum went, the idea here would be that another coin like Ergo or Ravencoin would at least replace somewhat what Ethereum was able to do, and maybe at least give you, pretty close numbers, so that eventually when things stabilize out, which they still may, this is all speculation of course, things would change and the hardware would continue to be good. But as the second day rolls on, it seems like it's getting worse and worse. If you check on websites such as whattomine.com, that's going to show you the profitability of GPUs. Most GPUs, if not all of them, are with reasonable electric costs. Let's say the average is 10 cents, which is very low for most of the world. Most of the world, like Europe, is going to have 20, 30, even above 40 cents per kilowatt hour in many places. So 10 cents is an average, a cheap average, I should say. Most people, even in the US, may be closer to 15 to 20 cents. So even if you take 10 cents, which is fairly low, most GPUs are not profitable at this point, including 3090s and 3070s, and it's a mix of different coins. Some of them may get close to maybe making like a penny or two, and if some occasionally do break and be profitable, it's very, very little. It's not like when 3090s were making $6, $10, $15 even a day at certain points. So definitely profitability continues to get worse. There's no indication it's going to get better. People think that when the dust settles of Ethereum changing to proof of stake, that maybe some people will quit, maybe a coin will have to spike up in value, and then mining will be profitable. A lot of calculations that they can do to see the market cap of what a coin would need in order for it to be mined with a GPU and be profitable. But the problem is the economy is not doing so great in general. The macro economy, stock market, everything else is sort of going down. So we have that acting against this at the same time that now the Ethereum being completely gone, nothing else is working, and that means more GPUs are going to flood the market, even more I think than most people suspected. Now that reality is sinking in, and this is only the second day, it's going to get worse as sort of the week goes on, the month goes on, and people really see that they have no use for multiple GPUs anymore because it's going to be way under any electrical cost. It's not like it's close and you can hold stuff and hope that the coin goes up. Right now it's getting very, very negative, and you can check so yourself, like on what to mine, like I mentioned. You can see how far away that these costs would be for yourself if you were mining or something like that. So for our purposes here, what does that mean for the discussion? That means that people are going to start to panic sell GPUs. They were selling before, but it was more calculated, like, all right, they're calculating, hedging their bets against risk and against the worst case scenario happened. And it looks like the worst case scenario has indeed happened, and nothing's really profitable at all. The people that are still, hardcore and trying to cling on, hoping something changes, which it may, like that's all speculation, anything could happen, but most likely day after day now, it looks like things are going to be going down further. And instead of strategically selling GPUs and things like that, people are going to start to panic sell, and that means much lower numbers in terms of the price that they're selling them at, and much greater volume, meaning that that's the reason why Intel saw that they don't want to get into the GPU market, because they're going to have to compete with very cheap mined on or whatever 3070s, 3080s, 3090s. They'll never be able to compete with that. And of course, you have a double-edged sword with NVIDIA's RTX 4000 coming out. So now let's hear a word from our sponsor. Priced pretty good is a Windows CD key. Today's video sponsor is going to be VIP-CDKdeals.com. Very simple process. You can get a Windows 10 Pro CD key, and remember to use code CC20 for a nice discount. I'll leave the links and the discount code down in the description below. And now back to the video. It's terrible for RTX 3000 because it's a new generation, therefore making all of the GPUs that are already struggling price-wise now, they're going to now be officially an older generation, even if they're still good. Don't get me wrong, the hardware, 3090, 3080, 3070, 3060 Ti, they're all fantastic GPUs, especially for gaming. You'll be fine with them for years to come, so don't get me wrong there, not to take away from how good the hardware actually is, but in comparison to what's new and the value that it's presenting, that's where the problem comes in. If you have a 4090 now, the people that had 3090s are going to want to get that huge jump in performance, meaning that they're going to have to sell their 3090s if they want to upgrade. And coupled with all of the crypto miners panic selling, that's going to create pretty much a perfect storm of the worst GPU flood that I think we've ever seen and likely will see for a while. This may make 2017 and 2018 the last time that we had a GPU market flood that actually affected the 20 series sales. This is going to make it seem like it was just a minor little rainstorm compared to a massive storm that we're going to have now. Remember when the 20 series came out, and even when RTX 3000 came out, the NVIDIA CEO himself, he said that now it's safe to upgrade, meaning that he was well aware that the 20 series was not really a great upgrade. Of course, the 2080 Ti, once again, hardware-wise, it's a great GPU, performs very, very nicely, but it was like $1,200, and it entered a market full of second-hand 10 series like the 1080 Ti, which still to today people buy, and it's still a pretty good GPU for many cases. So imagine a 2080 Ti at $1,200 when the second-hand market was flooded with mined-on GPUs when you had that crypto crash back then a few years ago. For much, much cheaper, you could get 1070s, 1080s, which was fine for most people. You can get them extremely cheap. Not to mention back then, SLI still worked for certain games. Like you can put two 1080 Ti's together and technically get better performance than maybe a 2080 Ti in certain games. Of course, now it's kind of wishy-washy. It doesn't really work unless you really, really try some random and very specific profiles. But back then, that was the train of thought that people had, meaning the 20 series did not sell particularly well. Then, of course, enter RTX 3000, which sold obscene amounts. Of course, AMD is all that's in this conversation as well. They certainly sold a lot of RDNA 2 GPUs, not as much as NVIDIA, but they're in there as well. They sold a lot, but the problems here certainly are going to be more acutely focused on NVIDIA just because they have greater market share. So imagine that same scenario, but considerably worse worse. Back then, the economy wasn't as bad as it's doing now, too. So you have that whole other issue sort of coming together now, and a lot more RTX 3000 on the market in inventories, a lot that NVIDIA has still that they had to hold back from selling to distributors. Like they said, they were going to, restrict the sell-in of the chips and things like that. So you don't have a massive overflow in the inventory that we already have now getting any worse. So put that together with, crypto mining really not showing any promise at all. People didn't really know what was going to happen. They knew that Ethereum was going to switch, but they didn't know it could have been delayed further and would have continued to mine. That's why a lot of them held a little bit further, or at least until the date of Ethereum. And even after it happened, people still have the hope that something else will come up, maybe something else that they can point their GPUs to. But as of right now, that's not looking very likely, especially with a bad economy. It may be months, maybe even years before something pops up that actually makes sense, coupled with the new RTX 4000. And it really spells one of the worst GPU floods and just people not buying at all that we've ever seen. This is going to have a lot of ramifications for the future. Who knows if new models will be as innovative or as expensive. If the stuff now isn't selling, the companies are not going to have the resources or the incentive really to produce certain things. Smaller companies are just going to completely get out, like some of the AIBs. They may not have as much of a presence. And we've already seen, like Intel, they got really, really shaky about entering the GPU market because it's no longer a healthy market. Not that it was a healthy market before when things were going crazy. That was a little bit too manic in one direction, but it's not a regular healthy market that's sort of in the middle even. It's really tilted now very, very negative with a lot of GPUs out there. So they don't want to enter that market. That means less competition for us as the consumer, less price competition, less performance and innovation. Think of all these technologies like upscaling that NVIDIA has. Intel has been showing those technologies. AMD has as well. DLSS and FSR, things like that. Those are all things that take a large user base as well as resources to put together. And if there's less demand, we're going to see less and less of those, meaning that games may not just look as good. So there's a lot of ramification from crypto mining, demand, the economy, GPUs getting cheaper and people not buying them. A lot of things will happen down the line that maybe we are not aware of right now, and it's going to signal perhaps a worse experience. Not saying that if the market had kept on being really, really hot and the prices kept going up, that was a bad direction as well. As GPUs started getting well over $2,000, nobody wanted to see that as well. So perhaps this could be a little bit healthy to shake up the market for a few months. All right, guys, so let me know your comments down below. What do you think of this situation? Remember to subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next video.